with no further ado, I am thrilled and happy to welcome with us today the inventor of the World Wide Web at LeWeb, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Welcome, Sir Tim.
Good to be here.
How are you doing? Please.
Hey, everybody.
We're delighted to have you with us.
Good to be here.
You're busy.
How's it going?
You're a busy person. It's going great. We're having a lot of fun here. How are you doing?
Oh, it's been a busy year because with the 25th anniversary of the web, we've been trying to use that this year to try to get ordinary people to think about how important it is to preserve the web, not just to use it, but also to make sure that the fight to keep it open, for example. Yeah,
we know we are following the battle you are on it. But if we can back up a little, I actually have a picture of you 25 years ago inventing the web. If we can, that's one of the pictures. So can you talk about? Can we back up and talk about this? Did you have any idea you were changing the world in such a dramatic way?
Well, we all try to change the world, don't we? I mean, every project we do, pretty much, and it's just you never know that it's going to work. And so lots of projects. I've had plenty of other projects. We've all had projects which either don't work completely or they kind of work and they fizzle out. So it wasn't. Yes, from the early days. So that must have been about a year in, or a year or two, because I'd switched my. The original Next machine, which was black, had black screens and black keyboards. That seems to be an HP machine. And we got we've got W3C. So W3C was that's quite a lot later. So W3C was founded in '94. So it was more than 5 years in.
Okay.
So
we should have.
So during that initial 5 years. The load on the first web server, every time I looked at the logs for a month, they'd be 10 times the number of hits that month than the same month a year before. So, and that went on for 3 years. So there was this exponential growth. And people say, so, well, when did you realize it? When did you realize it take off? When did it take off? But when if you put it on a logarithmic scale, then it just goes through sort of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. There was no sort of magic point. It was just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And to a certain extent, we are not there yet. Still, the minority of people on the planet still actually are using it. So that when it comes to installations of people getting it on mobile and in poor countries and so on, we're still not all the way there.
And but what did you have what were you trying to do at that time? What was the original idea? What was your dream?
So I suppose there were two driving things. One, just the frustration that all these different computer systems had each had their own operating systems and their own documentation systems. So anybody who developed some software or partners, CERN is a wonderful place. If you haven't been to CERN, you should definitely go and get somebody to show you around. It's got all these exciting people coming from all over the place. Very bright. At the time, they all used different computer systems. Some used mainframes, some used, they had mini computers, they had PCs and Macs were sort of starting to come in. So there was this huge heterogeneity of different systems. And when you went to look for some online information, you had to go to each computer and you had to learn how to use each computer. And yet, more and more, just at that point, in 1989, the internet had been around for 20 years, and so, in fact, these things were connected to the internet. And so, in principle, you should be able to just see them all as one big, as one big book, one big hypertext document. So it was that frustration that didn't exist. And also, because the people I worked with...
So you were just solving a problem that computers were not talking to each other.
Yeah, it was a problem I just needed for daily life. And as I started to put the web together, what I thought would be really neat would be if I could use it for my teams. So I was working with this, these are open source but although the word open source hadn't been invented then. These are people writing software, collaborating together. A lot of them were doing it in their spare time, in their individual institutes in different universities. I wanted a student to be able to just come in, read up about the project, understand the history, understand the problems, solve a problem, leave the solution woven into the web, and then go away without having to be briefed or debriefed. I wanted the web to be this tremendous collaborative environment where everything you know you can easily put in it, and everything that it knows you can easily get out. And I think from the way it spread after that, it became much more of a situation. Most people still just read the web. It's a read-only medium for most people. When it becomes a read-write medium, like when you blog, when you fix Wikipedia, when you add data into the web, then that's when it becomes, I think. Good.
And so if you could come back to 25 years ago, would you design hypertext and the web differently?
Well, if you actually look technically at the specs for things like HTTP and HTML, they, in a way, looking at them then, they were a bit weird in a way, but that is because they were designed to look like the original, the existing things. HTML was designed to look like HTML because I wanted the people who used HTML to look at it and feel familiar with it. HTTP, the Hypertext Transport Protocol, was designed to look like the Simple Mail Transport Protocol and the Network News Transport Protocol, and these are all the protocols which existing applications on the internet used. So again, so that when engineers looked at it, they didn't think, oh, that's something weird and foreign. I will compete with it. I will make something different. They would think, oh, yeah, I'll go along with it. I can use that. So, yeah, if I designed it all from scratch as an engineer, I design it probably completely differently. But you don't have that possibility at the time. It was really important to do it using technology which looked familiar to people.
How do you see all the giant commercial services that have been growing on your invention?
I think, well, the great thing about any platform is that when you design a platform which doesn't have an attitude about doesn't control what is built on top of it, then you can expect this incredible explosion. When Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn designed the internet, they designed it to carry any sort of data. They didn't have an attitude as to and so they saw this explosion. The web was part of that explosion. We've seen a huge explosion on top of the web. I think that's been great. I think, in a way, if we'd only seen the things that I could imagine built on top of the web, that would have been a failure. What's important is the things that we couldn't imagine. So yeah, obviously there's been a huge growth of things, both commercial and non-commercial.
How do you see I think you call them silos. So Facebook and the apps, anything which is not HTML. How do you like them?
Well, there's different issues. First of all, let's talk about non-HTML apps. Chris Anderson of Wired UK wrote a good article a while ago saying the web is dead, and a lot of people.
The web is dead, exactly.
He said the web is dead.
So
what he was saying was, look, the problem is that what people are doing is they're making you download the app, and then when you read your magazine, it's on they make you install an app on your iPad or an iPad on your Android machine, and when you read that, you're not online. This is dead. This is dead stuff. And anyway, he's right. If you just take your magazine and you put it in an app, it's boring. It's not part of the discussion. I can't tweet about it. You lose my enthusiasm. You lose my tweets. You lose my clicks of people trickling through to your article. So in a way, everybody loses if it's not on the web. People who now, if you build it as a web app, then you can build it. The important thing is that every place in it has got a URL. People can link to it. People can tweet it. We can have a big discussion about it. It can be part of the discourse. It can be part of deciding who to vote for. It can be part of figuring out how to solve global warming. If it's just if it's a native app, then it's like paper.
But it's
boring.
So native apps are boring.
Native apps are boring. If you design them so that they're so like the web that actually they have a URL so they can link to it. Sometimes people do that. They have a sort of share this, which pops up something which gives you a URL so that in a way. But the best thing in the future will be more and more to just when people develop things, they'll develop them using web technology so that it looks like an app on the phone, but actually it's a web page because everything that you can do when you build an app on the phone, you can do inside the web page.
But so just on that point, if you think about Facebook, they launched HTML5 mobile apps first. Their apps were all HTML. And then they redid them all in native, iOS and Android. So they went against exactly what you're describing. Do you think that's a bad move?
Well, when we talk about Facebook, the second part of your question was about silos.
Yes.
So the other, I think there's a lot of frustration I've seen out there in general with people who've committed huge amounts of their life to one or other social network, whether it's Facebook or Flickr. And so they've put all their photos in there. They've told it all of their connections and their contacts, and they've explained the groups that they know, and so that they can share photos with particular groups and so on. And so that they've done all that, for example, in Facebook, and then they go to Twitter, and they can't share. And in Flickr, you can't share your photos with your Facebook friends. You have to start all over again, building up your Flickr friends. So I think a lot of people, there was a great Economist article about it several years ago, where somebody from The Economist was saying, this is an issue, folks, this is a problem. They had a great cartoon of these walled gardens with people pulling their friends out of one cell, which was a silo, into another cell, out of the LinkedIn silo into the Facebook silo. So I think that's a problem.
But I'm sorry.
So I think that the silos, to a certain extent, people remember back before the web to things like AOL, America Online, Prodigy. Those services were completely walled gardens. They were the services where you get provided with whatever the service provider decides is good for you.
But when you meet Mark Zuckerberg, you tell him you should open more?
When I met Mark Zuckerberg last, we talked about, to a certain extent, we talked about the need for data to be, for me as a person, to have data which is on Facebook, from Facebook, and data which is from other places, and other places have access to it all. And I think they were quite interested in the idea that, yes, in that there would be a lot of apps, in fact, Facebook, that they don't control, and they do want to be able to provide user interfaces using data from those applications. So the world of that sort of world may be interesting. But in general, I think there's a future in which we maybe move to a new architecture in which I store my data where I control it, like on a computer at home or on a cloud that I trust, and where when I use an app, then I tell it to use the data that's on that cloud that I cluster. I think that there's a new, there's quite a big sort of a group of companies who are starting out with a different attitude, saying this is your data, you own it. Whenever you want to have it back, you can have it back. You can store it wherever you like. We're not abusing it. We're just trying to help you get your job done, to interact with your friends.
That's when you know that you have access to this data. So I've seen that when Snowden leaked the prison documents to the press, you congratulated him. You said congratulations for leaking all those documents to the press. Snowden.
I think that
that's kind of
since then, there we were saying, well, 2014, we're going to try to get everybody to think about the web and to think about how open it is and to keep and what sort of a web they want, and have they got the sort of web they want. And that was before, we were planning that before Snowden came along. And then suddenly everybody is talking about Snowden. And to a certain extent, unfortunately, it dominated the conversation. Because if you say to somebody, are you happy that the web, do you think that you have the underlying web that is the one you want? They say, I'm worried about everything Snowden's told me about. I'm worried about the government spying on me. They don't think, they don't worry about silos. Are they worrying about companies abusing their data? Lots of other concerns. Are they worried about net neutrality? Are they worried about the fact that they may have to pay more to access different websites because the ISP on their phone will be quietly trying to we're trying to influence them to go to one place or another? Are they worried that
China blocking some of it? Yep.
Or just channels slowing down? Are they worried that if they get an ISP which has got a political attitude, that when they try to go to some political party's websites, they won't load very quickly, so they'll go to another one, and they'll end up being manipulated by their ISP to have a particular political opinion? Have they worried about that? There are lots of things to worry about out there.
How do we solve that?
We insist on net neutrality. We say, look, this medium is so critical. We do so much now on the web. It's not just, a lot of discussion has been about movies. They take a lot of bandwidth. Take out all the movie watching. Think about everything that people actually do. We do things which are so intimate. We have chat conversations with people we love who are a long way away. We download our bank statements and we figure out what all those things in the bank statements, what sort of things we were doing. We diagnose our friends as to whether they have cancer and what sort of cancer it is, and we consider what the effect will be just by, we use the web for all these intimate things, so we have to be able to do that without the feeling that somebody's watching over our shoulder.
But shouldn't we just consider that everything is public now? There's no privacy anymore. Nope. Shouldn't we think this way? There is no privacy.
Nope. Because when society consists of people working in groups, everything is people working in groups. The group may be a country, it may be a government, it may be a company, it may be a family, or it may be a group of one, me. All of these groups work by having some information which they exchange between themselves without everything being open. So no, I think the people who said no, privacy is dead, get over it, they're ignoring just the basic architecture of society. So I think that, in fact, the ability for us to be able to form groups and to respect those groups, if you respect the family, you respect the family's right to have information which it shares amongst itself and nobody else. You respect the individual, and you respect their right to have information that I share with myself and nobody else. That is so core to the way human beings work, the way humanity works. To say that actually privacy is a silly idea, we should get over it, is really is a very silly idea.
What's the solution? Is it encryption, personal encryption? Should I make sure I encrypt everything before I send it?
But to a certain extent, recently we've gone into these battles between, so I'm going to use encryption, you'll try and break it. When it got to the point that banks were blocking money going to WikiLeaks, and then the hackers were attacking the banks, that is piracy. That is basically sort of outright sort of cyber war. That is no way to run a planet. We have a rule of law here. So in other words, if the first thing to do is to say no, if somebody uses finds my medical data and uses it to do something like secretly increase my insurance premium without letting me know, we should say no, that's illegal.
Which is happening right now.
We need to decide. When I say if I say to you, what web do you want? Part of that is, so what are the rules that you want to have about privacy? And we can enact laws and say no. Actually, we would like to have a world in which the web is neutral, where you can set my insurance premiums based on these things and not these things. So some countries have laws where you can't use DNA to set somebody's insurance premiums. They just decided, it's not a big theory. It's just we prefer that world. We could say, I prefer a world in which when I employ somebody, I'm not going to look at their childhood social networking history, because it's a better world where you don't. You say when people become an adult, then we can, you can show me the projects you did in school on the social network, fine, if you want to impress me.
Not you drunk,
but if you don't want me to, that's okay. So now we're building this world, okay? We make, en principe, we make the rules, okay? We shouldn't try to build. So, yeah, we should build encryption into systems for lots of reasons, and cutting down on cybercrime is part of it. But we shouldn't do it because we would like to change the laws and we're not able to. Or we'd like to change the way companies operate and we're not able to. We should change the way companies operate, we should change the laws as well. And also do encryption.
The right to be forgotten, we're in Europe. And there has been a lot of chatter about this. So what do you think about the right to be forgotten, especially the fact that we asked people data to be removed from Google? You can do that in Europe. You can go to Google and say, just remove this. So
I think this right to be forgotten is at the moment, it seems to be dangerous, because I think that we've also, in a way, the right to be able to access history is important. The right to not have people to change history about themselves. So I feel that the right to be forgotten is valuable if the thing that you want to be forgotten, the fact out there is actually false. Okay, so suppose you had an embarrassing experience. Suppose I write an article about you and say, oh, Loic, in his younger days, he defaulted on 3 mortgages. He's a terrible insurance. He's a terrible mortgage risk. Okay.
As long as it's that, it's okay.
If it's false, okay, then absolutely. No, I'm actually liable for maligning you. I could harm your ability to get. I could actually harm you. So it's quite reasonable. You should have some recourse about it. It's quite reasonable also for you to be able to go to people who are passing on that information, and say no, it should be removed from the web. But if actually, for the guy in Spain who actually, he did default on a mortgage,
so if
he
it's
did.
True, it should
so
be.
If it's true, then I think, I think that the free speech and the sort of the preservation of history is important.
Imagine so what you should, someone commits a crime and it's published on the web, it's fine. Like for life.
Here is the move we have to make. It's from saying you aren't allowed to talk about the fact that it happened, to saying you can talk about it, but you can't affect his employment. Okay, so it's rules about how we use data. So we can say, okay, let's have a rule that when you're employing somebody, you're not allowed to use any crimes they committed when they were juvenile. You're not allowed to use any minor crime they committed more than 10 years ago. So on. And so we can set those rules. We can make sure that the banks, when you're trying to get an account with a bank, when you're trying to get a credit card, you can make sure that the algorithms that the credit card companies use, that don't discriminate based on those things. It's our society. We build it. We can define the way. We can define rules about how people use data. I think that's much better than trying to pretend that the thing that never happened.
You think we'll open for questions in a bit if you can
think of questions.
Think of questions. So you think I saw you said that the politicians should learn coding to understand better computers. Do you think they get it?
Some do. We just saw backstage that Obama was seen doing his first
line of code.
President Obama was doing it. So I think really, and by the way, I've spent a lot of time trying to push women to code, because women are great coders, and sometimes in schools they tend to be taken subconsciously or consciously away from it. Coding is really fun.
You think we make them go away from coding, or you think women don't like coding?
I think women do it really well. I think they like it. I think sometimes people suggest to them that they should do something more like artistic, because I don't know why they do, but people have told me that it's happened to them. So I think it should be really, so expose everybody to coding early on. Some people will get it and find it really exciting, and after that it's just so fun to do, it's so creative, they will go on to have great careers being very creative out there on the web. Other people, they may not take off like that, but they will then do courses. They will understand how to program a computer. And by the way, this is computing. This is not how to use Microsoft Office, again, PowerPoint. By computing, I mean computer science, how to code. Those people who've done some coding, they will understand what is possible to do with a computer. Then when they are in Parliament, then they will have an idea. Instead of when they're making rules about computers, they will realize that actually instead of making rules about the software that they see out there, they will be able to propose, actually, we should have different software. And so that when we build the laws, the systems, the social systems that exist are partly technology and partly laws. They're partly policy, they're partly construction. The website that you run, when you go on the social networking site, you're influenced by the policy, you're influenced by our psychology, you're influenced by the law about what you're allowed to do, and you're influenced by what buttons you have to click on, and what options you have for who to distribute things to, and by all the different social functions. So that all those, the actual social world we design is part technical and part social. We design them much more together.
Any questions for Sir Tim? Just raise your hand. Yes, right here. Can we have a microphone coming? Number 6, please.
Hi, guys. I really enjoyed the discussion, really interesting. So, Tim, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about artificial intelligence and sort of the threat of human extinction through clever systems?
Can you rephrase slowly, because we have speakers here.
All right.
Just speak slowly, please.
Yeah, so what do you think about the threat of artificial intelligence and sort of human extinction?
What do you think about artificial intelligence?
Yes, and the threat of it.
What do I think about artificial intelligence? I think it's coming. I think that after, I suppose 25 years ago, it was going through a bit of a down period because it was people realized how hard some of these things were. B, whenever they got something done, like translation or vision, object detection and things, people stopped calling it successful AI and just called it translation software, vision software. And so I think bit by bit, AI has been nailing things. AI, it's got a lot of the parts of the brain have been done, not necessarily the way the brain does it, but okay. I feel that there is a sort of a mysticism out there that people imagine that a stream of consciousness is going to be a really hard thing to do because it involves incorporating something of the soul of a person. And I've got a horrible feeling that the stream of consciousness is just going to be a few lines of code on top of all the other stuff. It's going to be an attention directing algorithm and a what to say next generating algorithm, which will be based on, and then that'll draw on sort of code that we've already got. So my feeling about AI is it's coming. It's going to be.
Tim, have you seen the movie Her?
Not yet.
It's a movie where you have a little device in your ear, and you just talk to a computer, which talks back to you.
Yeah.
And the movie is basically showing how an artificial intelligent conversation can happen, and then the guy actually falls in love with the machine.
So is it because the guy fell in love with the machine that you first came to see me? That was that response. Is it why is that why you came to see me? Was one of the responses to the LISA program. Anybody here remember the LISA program? Yeah, LISA program was this really cool, very short, basic program. I had it running on my machine at home, and people would sit at the terminal, and it would just say, yeah, and then you say something like, you say, well, I'm going to see my mother, and it says, tell me more about your family, and people know it's a machine. And when I'm logging it, I've got a printer, I've got a physical printer in the next room, printing everything they're talking to this machine. So privacy violation. And it turns out that, and so members of my family who are very, very computer literate are really impressed, blown away, and you find, so even with something as simple as, in a way, Her is a next generation Lisa, it's quite easy to get somebody it's quite easy for a computer program to get somebody chatting, make them see them call, and every now and again, spit back something they've said to them. So I'm not so. Yeah.
But is that happening? Do you think in a few years we'll really be talking to computers in an intelligent way somehow?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we'll have some. When I was a kid, I read a lot of Asimov, and so the robot books, iRobot, and the Foundation trilogy. And when it came to the robot books, my feeling was that as technology went on, we should watch the point when robots are given rights in court to the same level as of a human being. That's the time to watch. I thought, okay, flag that, Tim. As you grow up, if you notice robots being given the rights of human beings, that's the time to pay attention.
When will that happen, Tim?
It's already happened. Because robots run our companies, and our companies in America, the Supreme Court has established that companies have all the rights of a human being. They just have more money. So, for example, they have the right to argue politically, spend money arguing, pushing for their case, which promotes the company. They have a huge amount of money they can spend on it, of course. Companies are run by computers. Fast trading companies are run pretty much only by computers. When you're a fast trading company on the stock exchange, your computer program is the only thing which compete. So
we can't compete.
Human beings cannot apply for that job, right? It's only available to computers. Computers can only do it fast enough. Computers now start making decisions about where to invest. Imagine that you give computers the ability to create a new company. Suppose you allow a computer to be entrepreneurial, create a new company, you allow the access to the companies registered. You give an API, easy. You give a JavaScript JSON API, which allows you to register a new credit company, move assets into it, create a board. You create a board of people that you know. The computer has a pool of people that it's paying, after all. It's paying, controls their income. So basically, once you allow the computer running the company, the computer can replicate itself. It can just get more by using the company's assets. It can buy cloud space. Can already done that.
Generate revenue.
It can fork itself into the cloud. That already happens. Now it can generate its actual legal instance. You give it API to a company's house so that it can create new companies, and then it can reproduce. So it can do all the things then that people can do. It can argue problems very, very effectively. It can bring, when it wants to defend its own interests, it can bring very, very many more resources to bear than the human being. So friends, don't ask when it will happen. It's already happened, and the robots are already here, and they're called corporations. I think we're out of time. Sorry, that was a long answer.
We should be scared.
Be scared. Be very scared.
Are you scared?
Be very, very scared.
You're very scared.
Very scared.
Elon Musk said the same.
You should all be very, very scared.
Elon Musk said he's trying to invest in every single artificial intelligence company, business, so that he has some access to information on what they're doing. So,
we're out of time.
No, we're not. Don't worry. Let's have a next question, actually. Here, over there.
Hello, I'm Geneviève Petit from Petit Web. I think you're partly living in France, and I have two questions for you. What struck you most in our bizarre country? And what's your job today? Do you have any copyrights on the internet, or who pays you?
Who pays me? Well, I have a secret torpedo patent, which you're going to be surprised. Submarine patent. No, I have no PI. I have no patents. You say, who pays me? So my day job is that I'm employed by MIT. MIT is one of the 4 main host sites which act as independent, sort of academic, sort of neutral parties in the W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. Because World Wide Web Consortium is a consortium of all kinds of people, but including all the big telecommunications companies who contribute to the development of the web. It develops web standards. So that's, if you like, my day job is being director of the Web Consortium, which is very well run. Jeff Jaffe is its CEO, and most of the time it runs itself well. So I have to be on a good day I'm involved with the long-term technical architecture. We have a technical architecture group, which is half appointed and half elected, and I work with that to try to both look at the future, making sure things will hang together, and also look for places in which the architecture may be falling apart, because there's so many different pieces of so my job is basically technical standards, keeping it one web. That's my day job. Then there are all these other things. We started the World Wide Web Foundation a few years ago. The Web Foundation tries to make sure that, more generally, the web serves humanity, which involves getting it to more people and keeping it open. So it's been very involved this year with the push for the web. We've got the UK government made a fairly unique Open Data Institute. I spent a lot of time pushing for open data. If you're in government, all your data should be open. The cadastre, good, excellent. The French cadastre is like all on the web. I'm worried. People are worried about whether the license is sufficiently open. But so in general, pushing that sort of thing, the Open Data Institute in London is just been running for 2 years. It does an amazing amount. Taking entrepreneurs and nurturing these startups which use data on one side, on the sort of demand side of open data, but also helping training people in government about how to put the open data out there. So the Open Data Institute takes time too, and then so there's the Web Foundation, the Web Index. I spent some time. I'm a professor in 2 universities, and I have students that I ignore to the point of abuse, but they get on very well otherwise. And apart from that, then I try to fit in sort of times for totally random things like this.
Another question. Over there. And that's going to be number 5.
Hello, I'm May I'm working in a healthcare startups in Belgium. And my question is, you created the web to be neutral, and in the past years, there have been some trouble in that way. And do you think that it's going to remain, that it's going to be kept neutral, or do you fear that the neutrality of the web might be in real danger?
It's our choice. It's not clear. There are huge forces on one side. Okay, we have the European Parliament has just put through a bill, but it hasn't got through the Council yet, which is defining net neutrality fairly well. Brazil enacted a law which defines neutrality and requires net neutrality, but it hasn't yet converted it into the actual regulations which would make that happen. So meanwhile, so there are forces, there are strong people. When people objected to SUPA and PIPA as acts and ACTA as agreements which would restrict the web, make it less open, then there were people holding placards on the streets that affected real people going out there on the street to protest that had made a real change, and obviously huge online protests as well. So on one side there is a very strong, very concerned set of people who will push very hard. On the other side we have the very strong lobby of the internet service providers and the telecommunications companies and people like the cable companies in the US who are really used to determining which, historically they used to tell you which movies you would watch tonight. The list is 300 movies. It's great. Why should you want to watch anybody else's movies? But they would want you to stop you going to anybody else's website. So this is, and obviously for a company to be able to control your web experience, to watch it, to be able to influence it is hugely powerful. For government to be able to do that, also hugely powerful. So on the other side, we've got massive motivations for the abuse of the internet. So we have to fight very strongly. Yes, I'm optimistic, but I'm not sure whether we'll win.
Yes, right here. That's going to be number 5.
Hi, my name is.
You have all day, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great.
My name is Ivan Hernandez.
I can also you can. Right.
I just wanted to ask you because, I mean, what you have done or what you have accomplished has had a
Can you
huge...
speak slowly? I'm sorry, it's just the sound.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The sound
is...
reverberate.
You have better sound than us because we're on stage.
Okay. What you have done, it has had a huge impact in humanity. My question is, what drives you to keep moving forward? I mean, everything what you have done, it's so difficult to understand the impact that it had on humanity. What drives you to keep moving forward?
What drives me to keep moving forward? Because we are so not yet done. You know? Yeah. So, like 25 years ago, I wanted this to be a really good collaborative environment. I wanted scientists to be empowered. I wanted families to be able to plan their vacations with a really, really cool hypertext system where they share all the data and all the materials and all the pictures and everything really easily. You know, still not there. When I've used semantic web linked data technology for doing my accounts, for handing in my taxes for like 14 years. I do a lot of personal data integration. So I have sort of I like to have the power of getting all the data out there and bringing it onto my computer and running my programs so I get actually personally, you had a panel on healthcare. Obviously in healthcare, this is really, really important. I want to have the power to be able to share that data with people doing medical research. And I want to be able to give that data to any doctor because I want to own it and I want it to be in open standards and all that. I'm pushing that as much as I can. At home, I've got things around my house and outside in the yard are being recorded by little sensors which run inside to Arduino in the cellar, which runs a web server, which has got linked data on it, which gets recorded, so I can track the temperature and decide whether it's good to go swimming or not, or going for running or walking when I get home. Not most people, and a few other geeky people do that. Most people don't have that. So we've got, so in a way, we've got a lot of content on the web, but we will never stop fighting for it to be open, and we will never stop innovating either. When you look at the pace of innovation, the number of cool things happening every year, every month, it's been coming faster and faster and faster and faster. You would be philosophically incorrect to imagine that this will stop now, and now the web will be like this. The web is going to go on like that, faster and faster and faster. And there's a huge amount of stuff that we've got to do, huge number of things, which are some of them are new opportunities, and some other things which really are still not done that I wanted to do back in 1989. Can
you describe what it is in 25 years that it looks like? Mm-hmm. What do the 25 next years look like? Can you tell us the vision you have of the future? Well, the 25 last years were sort of, I suppose, one of the big changes has been from it being 25 years ago, there's what was exciting was that you could program computers, and people realized that when you looked at a computer, if you could code it, then you could make it do anything you could imagine, more or less. So, and then we used these computers to form a web of basically of documents. Now, because of the HTML5, JavaScript, and the open web, what we call the open web platform now means that every web page is programmable just like a computer. So over this last 25 years, we've seen this move from a web page being a basically static document, and static documents are still good. That's some of the wonderful bits of the web, like Wikipedia. It's very valuable static documents, like a lot of the movies that you want to watch. Seen some of you, but meanwhile, also you've got the fact that every web page can be programmed. And LeWeb'14 is technology that allows you to actually have different web pages talking to each other without even going back to the server, which means that you can deploy technology which doesn't involve having to invest in servers and so on. So we've come to a place where the web technology is very, very much more powerful than it was 25 years ago. Partly what we're going to see over the next 25 years, we're going to start off exploiting that. We're also going to have, of course, we're going to have very cool devices. Every time you hold one of these events, the screen is probably a little bigger, and it's a little
and it's a little more higher resolution. And at a time, maybe next LeWeb, you'll just decide, you know what, we'll cover the entire auditorium with pixels because that saves decorating. And maybe, in fact, they'll keep your pixels up so anybody who wants to come and do a show, they don't have to worry about, they can just put wallpaper up electronically so that it will got to the point that everywhere you look, there are pixels that are smaller than you can see. And you'll be able to have that in your home. So that when you go, you can go down into a cave, you can go into the place where you want to experience the web. And the walls will be, so maybe you'll be wearing glasses, maybe like the Oculus Rift, but much higher resolution and much faster response time when you turn your head. Or maybe you'll be in a room which has just got pixels everywhere, but the effect will be that you really can't tell that you're not in Africa when you look around. Really, the sounds and certainly from your eyes, so when we get to that point, obviously the bandwidth to support video at that level will be great, but not ridiculous. And a lot of it may be done, instead of by using bandwidth, it'll be done by building 3D models, and you'll be doing games. So the environment will be different. But the brains that we have will be the same.
So that was my question. How about the improvement of our bodies? We have healthcare that is like everything is getting connected. We're wearing devices. So
I think improvements in life science and healthcare are really interesting. They're separate. I'm not an expert. You had that on the last panel.
Will we take a pill to learn to fly a helicopter?
I don't know. That's to learn to fly a helicopter. I don't know. Ask me in a couple of years.
But do you think that will happen? You don't know how to fly a helicopter and take a pill to swallow it?
I think the question about the Matrix thing, download me helicopter. I need to be able to fly a helicopter. It would be very, very nice. I would really like to be able to learn to fly a helicopter like that. Couple of things: be able to just learn Arabic, just like that. The architecture of the brain might be tricky to introduce that into the brain, but then there's also obviously, if you're going to get to that level, maybe that you download, it'll be difficult to do in our physical brains because of the restricted architecture to the way it's physically made. But if you take my thought patterns and you scan them and you download them, as Kurzweil will have you do in the future, then once you put you when I'm running in the cloud, then maybe it'll be much easier to add Arabic and helicopter flying.
This is fascinating, Tim. Just to conclude, because I know you have a very busy schedule, and we do as well. How can we help you in your mission? You're on a mission, especially you quoted before we come on stage on how to improve peace in the world by having more people online on the web.
Fight to keep it open. Every time anybody who uses the web, especially if it's your business, you spend 90% of your time, 95% of the time using the web as a technology, you need to spend 5% of the time, especially this year, looking at the legal situation, looking at the terms and conditions of your ISP, watching in the newspaper when you see that somebody has abused the openness of the internet and fighting to keep it open. So one thing I'd ask of you is to do that. Join that battle explicitly. Don't just watch it go by. As somebody asked, are we going to win? Are we going to have the open internet in the future? It's not obvious. Other things I'd ask you to do is, when you're building applications, you're building part of society. Every time you build an application, you're building the system which is partly social and partly technical. And when you're creating that technical part, think about the social implications. Think about all the social networking sites you go on to and all the games you play where you're sharing with people who are very similar. Think of all the social networking goes on between people who speak the same language. So think about how great the web is for promoting a culture, a particular dance culture and a musical culture and a poetic culture. But think about whether you can actually make it better at breaking down the barriers. How do you make a social network which introduces people not to the people who are most similar, but to somebody who is importantly different? They're very similar, but they live in a different country. They're very similar, but they speak a different language. They're very similar, but they code in a different language. No, serious. But they're very similar, but they live in the same country. They speak the same languages. They have a lot of the same politics, but they're actually a different religion. People don't bridge those boundaries. The typical dating sites don't. The typical social networking sites. I've called it a stretch friend. A stretch friend is the one which it forces you to go to a bit of effort. It forces you to actually sit down, stop having fun, just go to the big mental effort it is to understand what it's like to be somebody else who's a little different. So I'd ask you to build your apps so that they tend to make people, every now and again, make that effort, because without people making that effort, without people being able to understand people who have slightly different cultures, we are not going to be able to fix the big problems. We're not going to have peace on the planet.
Thank you very much, Tim. Really appreciate you coming here. Thank you so much.